There's a fresh kill in front of you, a dead lion, still warm. You're starving. You haven't eaten in 2 days. And you walk away from it, not because you're squeamish, because somewhere deep down, you already know something your body learned the hard way over thousands of years. Some meat kills the thing that eats it. Picture yourself there, 100,000 years ago. No fridge, no inspector, no label telling you what's safe. Just you, your hunger, and a world full of food that can quietly poison you from the inside. So what meat did ancient humans refuse to eat? Here's the strange part. Some of the deadliest things on that list aren't rotten. These aren't diseased. One of them looks perfectly fine, and it can kill you with a single meal. I'll show you which one. And there's one forbidden meat so dangerous that avoiding it may have left a permanent mark in your DNA. A mark you're carrying right now. Quick one before we go. What's the strangest meat you've ever eaten? Drop it in the comments, because by the end of this, you might understand why some meats never made it onto the human menu at all. Start with the biggest rule, the one almost every human culture stumbled onto independently. Be very, very careful about eating other predators. Look at what humans actually eat. Cows, sheep, chickens, deer, pigs. Notice the pattern? Almost all of them are plant eaters, or close to it. We built our entire diet around herbivores. The lions, the wolves, the big cats, the meat eaters, we mostly leave alone. That's not a coincidence, and it's not just squeamishness. There's cold biology underneath it. When a predator eats, it doesn't just get meat. It gets everything that was inside its prey, including whatever was slowly building up in their bodies. And a top predator has been eating other animals its whole life. Ancient humans couldn't name the chemistry, but over enough generations of watching who got sick and who didn't, the lesson sank in anyway. The hunters at the top of the food chain are the ones you don't want on your plate. Why? That's where it gets nasty. Here's the invisible trap, and it has a name. Biomagnification. Follow the chain. A tiny fish absorbs a trace of poison from the water, so small it barely matters. But a bigger fish eats hundreds of those small fish and keeps all their poison. Then a tuna eats hundreds of those fish. By the time you reach the top, the toxin isn't a trace anymore. It can be concentrated hundreds, even thousands of times over. The animal at the very top of the food chain is, in a sense, a living container for every poison that everything below it ever absorbed. You can see the modern proof of this. Scientists have found that top predators carry the heaviest loads of mercury and pollutants of any animals. It's why we're warned to limit how much shark and swordfish we eat today. Not because the fish is spoiled, but because of what a lifetime of eating other fish concentrated inside it. Now think like an ancient human. You don't know the word mercury, but your people have noticed, over generations, that something about eating the big hunters tends to end badly. So a rule forms, passed down, unspoken. Stick to the grass eaters. Their bodies were doing the math long before anyone could actually do the math. Now, the one I promised. The meat that isn't rotten, isn't diseased, looks completely fine, and can still kill you. It's liver. Specifically, the liver of certain large predators. Here's the trap. Your body needs vitamin A. But vitamin A is one of those things where a little is essential and a lot is a poison. And the liver of a top predator can store it in staggering toxic amounts. The most infamous example comes from the far north. Polar bear liver contains so much vitamin A that eating even a modest portion can make a grown adult violently ill. Headaches, peeling skin, vomiting, sometimes worse. Arctic peoples have known this for a very long time, and they treat it as a hard rule. You can eat the bear, but you do not eat the liver. And this isn't just a polar bear problem. There are old, grim stories from polar expeditions where explorers, desperate and starving, ate the livers of their sled dogs and poisoned themselves badly doing it. Sit with how cruel that is. It's not spoiled. It doesn't smell wrong. It's a fresh organ from a healthy animal. and a hungry human who doesn't know the rule can eat it and die, not from starvation, but from the meal itself. This is exactly the kind of hidden danger that ancient knowledge existed to prevent. Somebody, somewhere, learned this the worst possible way, and made sure everyone after them knew. Real quick, if you're finding this stuff as wild as I do, hit subscribe. Most people watching this channel aren't actually subscribed yet, and it genuinely decides whether videos like this get made. One tap, then let's keep going, because the next danger is alive and it's inside the meat. So far we've talked about poisons, but some meat carries something worse: passengers. Predators and scavengers are walking reservoirs for parasites. When you eat other animals, often raw in the wild, you pick up whatever they were carrying and it stacks up. The most notorious is a tiny worm that causes an illness called trichinosis, and its favorite hiding places read like a list of exactly the animals humans learned to fear: bear, wild boar, walrus, wolf, big cats. Here's the part that would have made it terrifying to an ancient human. This danger is completely invisible. The meat looks normal, and the worms can be tough enough that simply drying or smoking the meat, the main ways ancient people preserved food, didn't reliably kill them. Even a small taste of undercooked bear could be enough to make you sick weeks later, long after you'd forgotten the meal. To someone with no concept of parasites, this would look like a curse. Eat the wrong animal, feel fine, and then fall mysteriously ill a month on. So the culture does what culture does. It turns a pattern nobody understands into a rule everybody follows. Some animals you just don't eat. Or if you do, you cook them to death first. One of the quiet reasons fire mattered so much, which we dug into in our video on what ancient humans actually ate. There's another category ancient humans learned to respect, and it has nothing to do with predators. Animals that are built to be eaten and refuse to go quietly. Some creatures are poisonous themselves. Certain fish, certain amphibians, carry toxins in their flesh or skin strong enough to drop a human. There was no way to reason this out from scratch. The only way to learn it was for someone to eat it and not survive. That death became a lesson, not that one. This is where those weirdly specific traditional food rules come from. The ones that seem like superstitions until you look closer. A culture that carefully prepares one particular fish a very particular way. Discarding a very particular part usually isn't being fussy. It's carrying the compressed memory of everyone who died getting it wrong. The rule is the survivors talking, and here's the pattern across all of it: predators, livers, parasites, poisonous flesh. Ancient humans almost never understood the why. They didn't have toxins or parasites or vitamin A. What they had was something just as powerful: memory, passed down. A rule that says don't eat this doesn't need to explain itself to save your life. It just needs to be obeyed. Which brings us to the most forbidden meat of all. The one nearly every human society on Earth built its strongest taboo around: each other. I'm going to handle this carefully, because it's not a horror story. It's one of the most fascinating things in all of human biology. For a long time, people assumed cannibalism among ancient humans was rare, a shocking exception. The evidence increasingly says otherwise. Cut marks on ancient human bones, marks that match butchery. They show up in the archaeological record more than we'd like to think. And there is a very good reason it became forbidden almost everywhere. Because eating other humans, specifically, carries a uniquely horrifying danger. To understand it, we have to jump forward to something scientists watched happen in the 20th century. And it's one of the strangest, most important stories in all of medicine. In the mid-1900s, among the Fore people of Papua New Guinea, doctors encountered a terrifying disease. Victims would begin to tremble, then lose their coordination, then their ability to walk, then their lives, always fatal within a year or two. They called it Kuru, the shaking. It took years to crack. The cause wasn't a bacterium or a virus. It was something that, at the time, nobody thought could exist: a prion. A single misshapen protein that once inside you forces your own healthy proteins to misfold too. A chain reaction that slowly turns the brain to sponge. And it cannot be killed. Not by cooking. Not by anything. Where was it coming from? A funeral tradition. When someone died, the four honored them by consuming the body, and the women and children often ate the brain, where the prions were most concentrated. When the practice stopped, the disease eventually died out with it. Now here is the part that connects it to every ancient human who ever lived, and to you. Scientists studying our DNA found something astonishing. Nearly all of us, all over the world, carry protective variations in a specific gene, variations that guard against prion disease. And the pattern of those genes tells a story. They appear to have been shaped by natural selection over hundreds of thousands of years. The leading explanation is as dark as it is remarkable. That protection is so widespread because our ancestors needed it, because cannibalism and the deadly prion epidemics it caused happened often enough, far enough back, to leave its fingerprint written into the human genome. If that theory is right, then the near-universal human horror of eating our own kind isn't only culture. Part of it may be carved into your genes, a scar from an ancient plague, the same way we saw malaria carved into our DNA in the mosquito video and cobra venom in the snakebite one. Your body may still be defending you from a danger your ancestors barely survived. So step back and look at what all of this really is. We think of food safety as a modern invention. Inspectors, labels, use-by dates, refrigeration. But ancient humans ran a food safety system for tens of thousands of years without a single written word. And it worked. It ran on three things: observation, watching, endlessly, who ate what and who got sick. Memory, turning those patterns into rules and stories that outlived the people who learned them. And trust, a child believing a grandparent who says we don't eat that without ever needing to know why. That last one is the quiet miracle. Every don't eat that a child accepted on faith was a life potentially saved by someone long dead. The rule was a message in a bottle, thrown forward through generations, from people who paid for it with their lives. They didn't have our science, but they had the most important instinct a species can have. When something kills you, remember it, and tell your children, honestly, I think this is one of the most underrated forms of ancient intelligence there is. We picture our ancestors as brave hunters chasing mammoths, but some of their smartest survival wasn't about what they caught. It was about what they had the wisdom to walk away from. The lion they didn't eat, the liver they buried, the animal that everyone somehow just knew to avoid. That restraint, that inherited caution, kept our species alive just as surely as any spear. We didn't conquer the danger in our food. We remembered it. And we're still eating by rules written by people whose names we'll never know. If you want more of these, they're on screen now. Start with what did ancient humans actually eat? The other half of this story, then predators, because the animals we feared and the animals we ate were often the same. And snakebite, for another poison our bodies learned to survive. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one, because next time, we finally go after the enemy I keep promising you. Something so small our ancestors never even knew it was there. The thing that killed more humans than every predator, every fall, and every poison combined. See you then.